Section 2 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Veronica Jenkins. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 5, by Henry Gray. The Larynx, Part 1. The larynx, or organ of voice, is placed at the upper part of the air passage. It is situated between the trachea and the root of the tongue, at the upper and fore part of the neck, where it presents a considerable projection in the middle line. It forms the lower part of the anterior wall of the pharynx, and is covered behind by the mucous lining of that cavity. On either side of it lie the great vessels of the neck. Its vertical extent corresponds to the fourth, fifth, and sixth cervical vertebrae, but it is placed somewhat higher in the female and also during childhood. Symington found that in infants between 6 and 12 months of age the tip of the epiglottis was a little above the level of the fibrocartilage between the odontoid process and body of the axis, and that between infancy and adult life the larynx descends for a distance equal to 2 vertebral bodies and 2 intervertebral fibrocartilages. According to Sappi, the average measurements of the adult larynx are as follows: length, in males 44 millimeters, in females 36 millimeters; transverse diameter, in males 43 millimeters, in females 41 millimeters; antero-posterior diameter, in males 36 millimeters, in females 26 millimeters; circumference, in males 136 millimeters, in females 112 millimeters. Until puberty the larynx of the male differs little in size from that of the female. In the female its increase after puberty is only slight; in the male it undergoes considerable increase. All the cartilages are enlarged, and the thyroid cartilage becomes prominent in the middle line of the neck, while the length of the rima glottis is nearly doubled. The larynx is broad above, where it presents the form of a triangular box, flattened behind and at the sides, and bounded in front by a prominent vertical ridge. Below it is narrow and cylindrical. It is composed of cartilages which are connected together by ligaments and moved by numerous muscles. It is lined by mucous membrane continuous above with that of the pharynx and below with that of the trachea. The cartilages of the larynx (cartilaginous larynges) are 9 in number, 3 single and 3 paired, as follows: thyroid, cricoid, 2 arytenoid, 2 corniculate, 2 cuneiform, epiglottis. The thyroid cartilage (cartilago thyroidea) is the largest cartilage of the larynx. It consists of 2 laminae, the interior borders of which are fused with each other at an acute angle in the middle line of the neck and form a subcutaneous projection named the laryngeal prominence (pomum Adami). This prominence is most distinct at its upper part and is larger in the male than in the female. Immediately above it the laminae are separated by a V shaped notch, the superior thyroid notch. The laminae are irregularly quadrilateral in shape, and their posterior angles are prolonged into processes termed the superior and inferior cornua. The outer surface of each lamina presents an oblique line, which runs downward and forward from the superior thyroid tubercle situated near the root of the superior cornu to the inferior thyroid tubercle on the lower border. This line gives attachment to the sternothyroideus, thyrohyoideus, and constrictor pharyngis inferior. The inner surface is smooth; above and behind it is slightly concave and covered by mucous membrane. In front, in the angle formed by the junction of the laminae, are attached the stem of the epiglottis, the ventricular and vocal ligaments, the thyroarytenoideae, thyroepiglottici, and vocalis muscles, and the thyroepiglottic ligament. The upper border is concave behind and convex in front. It gives attachment to the corresponding half of the hyothyroid membrane. The lower border is concave behind and nearly straight in front, the two parts being separated by the inferior thyroid tubercle. A small part of it, in and near the middle line, is connected to the cricoid cartilage by the middle cricothyroid ligament. The posterior border, thick and rounded, receives the insertions of the stylopharyngeus and the pharyngopalatinus. It ends above in the superior cornu and below in the inferior cornu. The superior cornu is long and narrow, directed upward, backward, and medialward, and ends in a conical extremity, which gives attachment to the lateral hyothyroid ligament. The inferior cornu is short and thick. It is directed downward, with a slight inclination forward and medialward, and presents on the medial side of its tip a small oval articular facet for articulation with the side of the cricoid cartilage. During infancy the laminae of the thyroid cartilage are joined to each other by a narrow lozenge shaped strip named the intrathyroid cartilage. This strip extends from the upper to the lower border of the cartilage in the middle line, and is distinguished from the laminae by being more transparent and more flexible. The cricoid cartilage (cartilago cricoidea) is smaller, but thicker and stronger than the thyroid, and forms the lower and posterior parts of the wall of the larynx. It consists of two parts, a posterior quadrate lamina and a narrow anterior arch, 1/4 or 1/5 of the depth of the lamina. The lamina (lamina cartilaginous cricoidea) posterior portion is deep and broad, and measures from above downward about 2 or 3 centimeters. On its posterior surface, in the middle line, is a vertical ridge, to the lower part of which are attached the longitudinal fibers of the esophagus, and on either side of this a broad depression for the cricoarytenoideus posterior. The arch (arcus cartilaginous cricoideae) anterior portion is narrow and convex, and measures vertically from 5 to 7 millimeters. It affords attachment externally in front and at the sides to the cricothyroidae, and behind to the part of the constrictor pharyngeus inferior. On either side, at the junction of the lamina with the arch, is a small round articular surface for articulation with the inferior cornu of the thyroid cartilage. The lower border of the cricoid cartilage is horizontal and connected to the highest ring of the trachea by the cricotracheal ligament. The upper border runs obliquely upward and backward, owing to the great depth of the lamina. It gives attachment in front to the middle cricothyroid ligament, at the side to the conus elasticus and the cricoarytenoide lateralis. Behind, it presents in the middle a shallow notch, and on either side of this is a smooth, oval, convex surface directed upward and lateralward for articulation with the base of an arytenoid cartilage. The inner surface of the cricoid cartilage is smooth and lined by mucous membrane. The arytenoid cartilages (cartilaginous arytenoideae) are 2 in number and situated at the upper border of the lamina of the cricoid cartilage at the back of the larynx. Each is pyramidal in form and has 3 surfaces, a base and an apex. The posterior surface is a triangular, smooth concave, and gives attachment to the arytenoide obliquus and transversus. The anterolateral surface is somewhat convex and rough. On it, near the apex of the cartilage, is a rounded elevation (colliculus), from which a ridge (crista arcuata) curves at first backward and then downward and forward to the vocal process. The lower part of this crest intervenes between 2 depressions or fovae, an upper triangular and a lower oblong in shape. The latter gives attachment to the vocalis muscle. The medial surface is narrow, smooth, and flattened, covered by mucous membrane, and forms the lateral boundary of the intercartilaginous part of the rima glottis. The base of each cartilage is broad, and on it is a concave, smooth surface for articulation with the cricoid cartilage.